less is known about Judas from the scriptures than Peter. We know that Judas was in charge of the money because the disciples were surprised at how abruptly Judas left the Passover feast, thinking that maybe he was going to make financial arrangements for the group. We know that Judas betrayed Jesus by conspiring with the Pharisees over 30 pieces of silver. Think anywhere from about $100 to $500 US today. And then I would add a couple $100 because of inflation since the last time I preached this sermon. Two of the Gospels tell us that Satan entered into Judas, perhaps influencing his actions. In the Gospel of John, the moment that Satan enters into Judas is when Jesus hands Judas the bread and says, "What you are about to do, go and do quickly." In the Gospel of Luke, Satan shows up on the scene much earlier, right before Judas meets with the Pharisees to negotiate a price for his betrayal. But regardless of which gospel you read, all four of them tell us that it was indeed Judas that betrayed Jesus that night in the Garden of Gethsemane while kissing Jesus on the cheek. What an intimate way to betray somebody. If you've ever had your heart broken, then you know that it is the people that are closest to you that have the ability to do the most damage. If somebody you barely know or have never met acts deceitfully towards you, well, then you just write off that person. You're like, well, you must just be that kind of person. But if somebody close to you harms you, someone you've been with for years, someone who knows your vulnerabilities and can use that information against you, well, then that betrayal is felt all the more deeply. Rather than stabbing Jesus in the back, Judas walks up to Jesus, says, "Hail, Rabbi," and kisses him on the cheek. That act of betrayal would lead directly into Christ's passion, his arrest, trial, death, and resurrection. So Judas is remembered as the bad guy in the story. So much so that his name has now become synonymous with betrayal and treachery. Just as Sodom and Gomorrah is synonymous with God's judgment and wrath. A David versus Goliath is synonymous with someone who is severely outmatched. To be a Judas means to be deceitful or to betray one of your own. But outside of these few scriptures, we're not given much to go on when it comes to Judas's true motivations for his actions. In fact, the scripture that Daryl read just a minute ago is really the only time outside of talking about his betrayal that Judas is even mentioned in scriptures. But there might have been more to Judas than just that. In the Gospel of Matthew, Judas is shown to have great contrition for his actions, wanting to give back the money that he was given to the Pharisees. Similar to Pontius Pilate, some traditions have looked later on Judas as a sympathetic character, one that was kind of just caught up in all the stuff that was going on, and that the betrayal needed to happen the way that it did so that Jesus could rise from the dead. That maybe Satan or even God's determinism is to be at blame here. On a side note, interestingly enough, Muslims believe that it was Judas, not Jesus, in disguise who hung on the cross that Friday afternoon. And that's because they believe Jesus to be a prophet, and God would not cause one of his prophets to suffer. Or maybe Judas just wanted Jesus to be the type of Messiah that he wanted him to be, rather than the Messiah that Jesus really came to be. More on that next week.